But the team literally went from being told that this project that we all loved and had put, you know, a year or so of our lives into was gone, and 5 minutes later they were all laughing, making up game ideas together, and they were just like, this isn't going to beat us sort of thing. When we started the studio, we actually formed in my parents' garage, which is about a 5-minute walk from here, the Dlala offices. It was back in 2012. Myself and Craig Thomas, my co-founder, had been working at Bossa. So we'd been at Bossa Studios for about a year. Previous to that, we'd both been at Jagex. And we just kind of picked up a BAFTA award at Bossa, and we was kind of on this real big high. But as we were kind of looking to the future, I started to feel that my future didn't necessarily lie at Bossa anymore. And the conversation Craig and I had was like, well, look, when are we ever going to get a chance to do our own thing if we don't do it now? January 2015, I flew out for DICE, which was the end of Jan that year. So I went to Vegas, so I had about 33 pitch meetings in 3 days that got sorted for me. And it was one after the other, and it was absolutely relentless. And then I was looking at the schedule, and the next meeting was coming up, and I said, like, I'm not going to this. There's no way they're going to be interested in us. You know, we are not the right fit for them. Like it's just going to waste time, and I could do with this hour back, like an hour to recover before going to more meetings with people that don't want to sign us. So that was Disney. So went and sat down from, I can't remember who it was at the time, he's no longer at Disney, and I took him through the whole pitch, and he was like, look, I've got to be honest, like, I'm not particularly interested in this pitch. And I was like, oh, another one to the collection. But he said, like, we're interested in you. He said, like, you know, when we saw Overruled, you know, whilst the execution wasn't perfect, ouch, we liked the whole changing the game up as you were going, and we're looking for someone to do something fresh with one of our IPs. And that's when they kind of said, like, hey, like, we wondered if you'd be interested in doing something like quirky with Mickey. Like, is that any interest?
It didn't feel real, if I'm honest. Like, going from, like you said, working in garages and then working in this office, you know, painting the walls and stuff, it all felt very kind of early days. And then to hear just to hear the name Disney, you just think, no, that can't be right. That's not us making a game for Disney.
Yeah, it was definitely a strange jump. Like from this, I mean, we loved Overruled, right? Like we had a lot of fun making it, but we understand the limitations and the inexperience in the team, and to go from that to basically, here's one of the biggest companies in the world, you're going to maybe take their biggest IP in the world and make something, was a huge leap. Like you said, it was a lot of, how's this happened? Oh, by the way, you're going to Los Angeles in a couple of weeks' time to meet everybody and get the deal finalised. Crazy.
It's no secret I'm a hardcore Mickey fan. Like, you know, it's not a gimmick. Like, it's not like, oh, I've got to pretend I love Disney. Like, I am a hardcore Mickey Mouse fan, always have been. You know, loved Mickey and Friends, was obsessed with Goofy as a kid. So I was like, yeah, of course. So I headed back, told the guys what had happened, and we started working on like a pitch for a concept. And the next thing you know, we've been given like a multi-million-dollar deal, basically, to do a new Mickey and Friends game. You know, and this was literally as we were moving into this office. So I think we worked on the start of pre-production on that game. I don't even know if we had desks. I think we might have still been on the floor working on our rigs in here. And that was kind of how that all kicked off. And that was the first iteration of us working with Disney.
I felt like an absolute fraud, man. Like, it was why, still to this day, I get this a lot, that whole imposter syndrome feeling. Why were these companies like Disney trusting two beardy guys from England to make anything? Like, let alone Mickey Mouse. Like, that's huge. So it was really exciting. It was a really exciting time.
One thing they were fully aware of, and everyone knew of us going in, was like, we were this new studio. We'd only really made Overruled and Janksy. Like, no one was expecting us to go in and like make a new Epic Mickey. You know what I mean? They wanted us to do something quirky. And you know, for that first year, it went really well, and it was tough because it would be like we were making this massive game. We had to make big changes. We suddenly like needed a producer, so that's when we hired Gemma, and we needed to up the staff because we couldn't make this with 5 of us.
Despite the fact that Disney gave us one of their biggest IPs, they actually gave us quite a lot of freedom to run with it. They didn't get too involved early on, which was nice. It meant we could transition as a company. Like, it meant there wasn't such an abrupt change in the way we had to work. But yeah, we did all of a sudden go, hey, we probably need producers. We probably need some grown-ups at the company to like manage our work and our schedules. So, you know, we actually know how far the budget's going to take us. As the team grows, you know, you can't be so haphazard anymore. Like, when there's 5 or 6 of you, like, you can just jump on a call with the entire team, essentially, have a quick chat, prototype the thing. Everybody knows what everyone's doing. As you grow to 20, 30, 40 people, it's just not possible anymore.
Yeah, exactly that. I think there's still moments where we can kind of like create that. We can put the team together in a small way, in a controlled way, but kind of still have that environment where you can riff off each other's ideas and stuff. But it is more structured. You have to kind of set aside some time and some space for that.
And so we went out a few times a year to see Disney, and I think it was start of the year, maybe January of 2016. Gemma, who, you know, now our COO, then our lead producer, Gemma and I flew out. Disney were wonderful. All the meetings went well, but we could tell something was not the same. Like, it wasn't like anyone was being funny with us, or no one was being nasty or anything, but just the way certain conversations were going and certain questions were asked, we just got this weird inkling. And I remember on the flight back, we were both like, look, there's nothing to worry about. No one's told us to worry, but let's start battening down the hatches. Like, if this plan for the worst and just hope for the best. It's kind of like if you know a breakup's coming. Like, you can feel the breakup's coming. You don't entirely know why, but you're almost like just trying to get yourself into the right mindset to be able to handle it.
We could kind of feel things escalating, not in a bad way, but just in a way where things weren't getting done as quickly. Like, early on in the project, we were prototyping. It was like, right, we've got this level, we've got this design, and it was going quite fast. But then we're getting to a point where we're like, we need to have this fully arted or start arting some of the game. And we weren't close, but the release date would have still been the same. So it did look like it was starting to hit the rocks a little bit.
So when I got the call, March 30th, 2016, I think it was, about 9 o'clock, my producer messaged me, said, can you jump on Skype? So I jumped on Skype, and yeah, he was just like, look, and he was really upset, and it was really heartbreaking to see that. And it's like, look, there's no easy way to say this. He said, you guys, the project's done. The big thing from me and all the leadership team was like, we have to tell the team straight away in the morning. I'm not going to have people come in, like, nothing breaks my heart more than people coming in and doing work we know isn't needed.
And it was heartbreaking. Like, these are people that had trusted us, like, not just with jobs, because it was more than that, but like with their lives, their livelihood, and having to tell everyone that was happening, man, that really sucked.
So gets to 9 o'clock and I rounded everyone up downstairs and I was just like, look, this sucks. There's no easy way for me to say this, but the game's done. It's nothing we could have done. Everyone's told us how wonderful we are. And I think this was like a Wednesday, and I said, like, look, take the rest of the week off, have the weekend, come back on Monday, and we'll put a plan of action together.
The team's amazing. Like, the team's just incredible. It's one of those things where something bad happens and everyone bands together. Like, that was it. Like, within, you know, I think AJ sort of said to the team, like, we should take some time to decompress. We should maybe have a few weeks off. And everyone was like, no, we want to be in next week. We want to start the next project. We want to see what's going in the future.
Yeah, it wasn't long before we were back in those small groups, just prototyping new ideas. You know, we didn't dwell on it for long at all.
I think it was Rory Jobson, who's still here, our first ever artist we hired after Grant. And Rory said, like, can we do game jams for new ideas now? And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, look, you know, we've loved this game, but like, we don't want to leave you guys and go home. We want to stay here, and like, can we start working on new ideas? I was like, well, would anyone else want to do that? And everyone put their hands up. And I got very emotional because, you know, I didn't expect that. I was, you know, because that was the bit I was worried about. I didn't care for me. Like, it's the games industry. It's horrible, but this stuff happens. Like, you know, this stuff is unavoidable. We know this when we sign contracts with kill clauses in that there's a chance they could get used. But everyone was just like, no, we're gonna We're going to come up with brand new ideas, we're going to get straight on it, and we're going to keep moving. So a big rule for us is that it doesn't matter what your contract says. If we ever get to the point where there's only 6 months of money in the bank and we don't know where the money's coming after that, I will tell the staff. Because then they can start looking for jobs, go to interviews while they're getting paid. And we were about a week and a half away from having that conversation. And I was just stressed. I wasn't sleeping. You know, all we could think about was this, and where was the money going to come from? Why hadn't we been offered a deal? I first met Craig Duncan, who runs Rare, in 2012. So I did this talk for TIGA, and it was the first bit of public speaking I'd ever done. And I made 2 friends that day, Debbie from Team 17 and Craig from Rare, who became big parts of our future. And kind of, I started pitching in Battletoads straight away, because I loved the original game, like the original 91 Battletoads. And I'd keep pitching him, and he'd always be very nice, but very honest and truthful. You're not ready, the pitch isn't good enough, etc., etc. And then when the Disney game got cancelled, then I got this email from Craig. And Craig said in the email, like, hey, dude, like, you still interested in Battletoads if it comes up? And I was like, yeah, of course. You know, he goes, oh, cool, I'm touching down in Redmond, where MS are. Don't know if anything will come of it. And it was really out of the blue, and I kind of just thought it was him being nice, you know, because he was a friend as well. I think he was trying to, like, I thought he was trying to lift my spirits and keep me hopeful. And then the next day I get this email from him, and it says, hey, dude, about to go into 10 hours of back-to-backs, but we are go. And now sitting with you today, I know what we are go means, right? It means we're making Battletoads. But back then, when, you know, we were at this low point, probably the lowest point we ever reached as a studio, no idea. So I tried calling him, and he didn't answer. And I just sat, at the time I was sat down with the team, like I didn't have my own office, and I just sat there like this, and I was going between like shaking my head and being quite like teared up. I was like, I just don't understand. And luckily for me, Craig was only in about 6 hours instead of 10 hours of meetings, and he rung me and he was like, you all right, dude? And I was like, not really. And he goes, what's the matter? And I said, well, what's going on? He goes, what do you mean? I said, what did your email mean? He goes, oh, we're making Battletoads, aren't we? And so we had suddenly gone from studio's going to be done again to we're making Battletoads. Dlala as a studio, like, we're very lucky. We have year-on-year growth. We have new staff members, like turnover gets bigger, but we live project to project. So we can never finish a project without having the next one lined up. Like, we have to know where the next one is coming from. So basically, I started pitching for new games in probably summer 2019, so a year and a bit before Battletoads came out. And we sat down, the strategy team, we're like, okay, well, like, I've really enjoyed this whole working on someone else's IP. Like, you know, we've got a lot of freedom still, but we've got to tell a cool story, and having some level of establishment before you start is quite fun. We're like, okay, let's do some more IP. So what IP are we interested in? And we were in a meeting, and I said it completely as a joke. I was like, oh, could you imagine if we worked with Disney again? And we all laughed, ah, ha, ha. And then we stopped and we was like, oh, could we work with Disney again? And we spoke to, like, we got Derek on a call, and we laughed about it. And Derek was like, well, I mean, we can call them. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They say, we're not doing that type of deal still, or like, no, we don't want to work with you guys anymore. Like, doesn't put us in a worse position. We got on this meeting, and it was around September, I want to say, September 2019. Got on a call, and it was me and all the strategy team here, and like John Drake, Luigi, Sunoco, like all from Disney Games, and it was wonderful. And I think we went over time, and we took them through where Dlala's at now as a studio and our processes, and kind of we were very aware of like where we'd had faults, and a lot of those were me. Like, I took feedback very, very badly. Like, I was always so defensive. So we showed them what the pipeline was on Battletoads to how we handle feedback. And then they spoke us through the company's strategy, what they're looking to do. And like at the end of the call, we were all a bit like, oh, shall we do something together? And we were like, yeah, like, that would be great. And they were like, oh, would you guys be willing to do something with Mickey and Friends again? And I was like, yes, like, yes, 100%.
I definitely felt that we were more confident going into the second deal. We'd learned a lot during the Battletoads kind of project that I think empowered us a lot more than the first project. I mean, as Ben said, overall was great, and we learned a lot from that. But it was nothing compared to what we learned during the production of Battletoads.
I definitely felt as a studio we were more ready the second time round. I still think we would have released something we were proud of the first time round, but the quality bar wouldn't have been anywhere near what we were like the second time round.
I remember every time we had a meeting that they'd call people up and be like, don't worry, we're not cancelling the project. Every time we had an all hands meeting, it'd be like, can everyone just come to the other room? Just PS, the project's still on, which is quite funny. Like,
yeah. To be fair, I think if there was any real panic about it, that we wouldn't have been joking so flippantly like that. No, I think as well, like the quality we were hitting early on across the board was substantially higher as well than the first time round. Like we were getting art in, signed off. The game, the characters were looking great. The tech was working. It just felt like more of an experience than the first time round, which still kind of felt very prototypey.
We were really scared when we did the first deal, and not because Disney were nasty to us, but because it was Disney and it was Mickey Mouse, and we were 5 dudes in a garage at the time when we negotiated that deal. And that game was always bigger than us, and like this, the thing I always said is like that game getting cancelled is the best thing that ever happened to us, like the best thing. And I know it's easy to say in hindsight, but honestly, it really is, because I think if we'd finished that game, we wouldn't have been picking up awards, we wouldn't have been getting great reviews, we wouldn't have been having an opportunity to do a documentary about the game. Like that wouldn't have happened off of that game because we weren't ready for what we needed to do for that. And that period between 2016 and us starting in 2020 helped us grow as a studio, get the right people and get to where we needed to be. So we were 10 times less scared going into this, and we had a point to make. So actually at no point in this entire project was there any fear from my perspective. I felt the weight of Mickey Mouse and what Mickey means to everyone and what Mickey means to just the world, but I never felt any pressure from Disney to do anything. I just knew that they just trusted us to execute.
Disney have been really cool, like surprisingly cool for like I said, it's Mickey Mouse, right? Like, name me a more famous character in the world than Mickey Mouse. And to have that kind of freedom to be able to actually create what we wanted to create was really cool. And to be fair to them, that was also the case way back when we first started. Like, they've always given us that creative freedom to make the world, the stories, the characters that we want to really tell.
Massively a part of why Illusion Island is as good as it is that I gave Grant space. So I'd always been our game director, creative director, but I was very hands-on, I like to tell the war stories, but I reviewed and implemented every animation in Battletoads. Like every animation I put into the game after it was given, and I reviewed every asset. And what happened after Battletoads was we did this big post-mortem where I just went one-on-one with the team, and every member of the team got at least an hour with me. And the big thing that kept coming out was they don't understand where the line is between me as director and Grant as lead designer.
It was difficult when he was like that. It was difficult on the team as well, because I think it was hard for them to know who to go to. It was hard for them to know who has the final say within things. And I think him letting go was a massive thing for Illusion Island. And I think it definitely benefited on the team understanding who they should talk to for what, and also just kind of how stuff should trickle down within the company. And I think it allowed me to kind of flex my creative muscles a lot more, which I enjoyed. It meant as well, although AJ wasn't actively hands-on with everything, me and AJ were still constantly talking to each other about the vision and the design vision and narrative vision of Illusion Island. And it just made what we were communicating to the team so much clearer, and just meant that there was such a clear vision that we could just provide to people. So there was no grey areas, essentially.
I think it's worked really well because it's given people the freedom to step up and kind of develop their skills. Yeah. I think we also got some ideas that perhaps wouldn't have come naturally with the amount of control that AJ had before, because he just had too much to do, right? He was spread far too thinly.
Doing a Metroidvania with no combat is a very strange statement to make. So there was combat originally, so there was going to be combat. So when Grant and I started working on what Illusion Island was going to be, this room was post-it notes, wall-to-wall post-it notes, and it was everything the game could be. And that was our rule. We kind of, some people talk about that blue sky thinking, but Grant and I almost saw it as a bit like improv. It was always yes and so any possible idea that could have been in the game was stuck up on the walls. And then as we started moving forward and refining what the experience was and the pillars started taking shape, stuff would come off the wall into the bin or go onto the side because it's going to happen.
every time we went through all the notes, we would go, oh, combat. And we'd both go, well, why is it up there? And we'd go, because Metroidvanias have combat. And that would be our only reason. And, we looked a little bit into combat, and we did create enemies where you could tread on them, Mario style, bounce off their heads. And it just didn't feel right. And I think for the character as well, it didn't feel right. And the kind of world that we were creating, we wanted to create this beautiful world that Mickey and friends were going to, and it almost felt like, hey, they just turned up and started kicking the animals that live here. So it seemed to make more sense to us that almost like Mickey and friends have gone into this world. These creatures have always been there, they've always lived there, and it's more like about avoiding them and letting them get on with what they're doing. It kind of made sense in the end for the IP, for the narrative, for the feel, and for kind of the audience that we were aiming for as well.
And we got on a call with Kelsey, who's our producer on the Disney side, and we were like, look, this is going to sound weird, and it's probably going to sound a little bit scary, but we don't want to do combat, and here's why. And we did the full presentation, and we got to the end, and Kelsey was like, yeah, makes complete sense.
The main thing in removing combat that was challenging was all this time where you're moving and you're traveling between places and figuring out, well, if combat is gone from that, what is the player doing? And that's why there was such kind of a heavy focus from our perspective on the joy of movement. So when we're kind of coming up with how we want the player to feel, and when we're trying to describe it to the team, we always come up with a creative intent statement and an image for that. And that kind of just outlines for us and team members what we want the player to feel while they're doing it. And I think I'm going to try and read it think of it off the top of my head. It was feel the free-flowing joy of movement through a parkour playground, I think it was. And that was kind of what we wanted players to feel. So it was although combat wasn't there, the actual movement and navigating the world should feel fun. So when I think about kind of other Disney media and the influence that that's had kind of on the game itself, obviously the major one that we have there is the hidden Mickeys. I think that has always been kind of on our top tier list of something that we would want to get into the game. I think it's just such an enjoyable thing for people to have when they're at the parks that we just had to include it. There were a couple of other things that didn't make it in the way that we wanted. So for example, I really wanted pins. I really like the Disney pins at the parks and whatnot. And that slowly kind of manipulated itself and turned into kind of the token collection mechanic that we had. Originally, me and AJ were talking about, well, if we could have pins, we could do pin trading with the NPCs, which I really wanted to do, but it was like a scope thing that we couldn't get that in. And as for kind of other things within kind of Disney media, we had quite a focus on Disney parks and kind of how the parks felt, how it felt to walk through the parks and it be seamless, how the audio within the parks was seamless as you go between areas. So we wanted to make sure in the game, as you're kind of going into these different biomes, that it doesn't feel like a hard cut. It feels like the music's transitioning and the visuals should kind of transition as you go through. So kind of Disney media-wise, it was very much Disney parks was such a big thing. I think one of the original conversations me and AJ had was, well, we're looking at Metroidvania, and we had this big book about the Disney park, and I looked at a top-down picture of a park, and I went, that's a Metroidvania map. I went, that's literally a Metroidvania map. Parks should be the inspiration for this. It's all interconnected, there's all shortcuts there, and it's all free and open for you to kind of explore.
The journey to get to what our Mickey and friends looked like in the world and stuff was a lot quicker than you'd think, a lot quicker than I expected. Mickey is beloved, obviously, 100-year history near, and we knew that we had to be respectful, and we wanted to. As I've said, I'm a Mickey fan, and if you look around my office, the kind of Mickey I've always loved was the white-faced Mickey, that 30s and 40s Mickey. I just found that really appealing, felt a little bit more, not grown up, but it didn't feel as young skewing as kind of some of the later Mickey designs. So I knew that I wanted that to be a big influence. And our art director, Lucy, I just told Lucy kind of where my head was at and where was she at? What would she want her Mickey to look like?
When we started with Mickey especially, we did a shotgun blast, that AJ likes to call it. So basically just pages and pages of quick designs and literally just like anything that comes to mind, put it on a page and really pushed what Mickey looks like. There was some that just look nothing like Mickey. So what we wanted to find out was, what is it that makes Mickey who it is? Because it's not just like 3 circles for like, you know, the head and ears. What is it? What's the essence of Mickey, and how far can we stretch it until it breaks? We did about 70 of those, like over 70 designs, and then with the sketches and like iterations, we ended up with like over 100 versions of Mickey. Once we had our Mickey, it was easier to get the other 3 because we had a style in mind and we extracted what made our style. You know, it's like, this is our Mickey. What does it mean for how we design the characters in the world? So it was easier getting to the other 3, especially putting them next to our Mickey. It's like, hey, does that look like Mickey, like this Goofy? Does it look like our Mickey's friend? We also created this shape language for each character. So I'm going to use Minnie as an example. So Minnie has the bow that has this like heart-like shape that you can also see on the back of her tail and also here. With Goofy is really interesting because Goofy's face is reflecting his shoes. So if you look at his shoes when he's standing, they have the same shape as his snout and nose. So it was little things like that. With Mickey, it had to be the magic of Disney. So we use stars a lot, not in his design, it's too iconic to mess with, but in his VFX. And with Donald, we have this shape that you can see here, and it's on here as well, and it's on this. So yeah, we had, his feet as well. But we took that into the VFX and sometimes their animations as well.
The art style works really well with animation. We've had it with previous projects in Battletoads when the characters are a lot more complex. It makes it a lot harder to animate, but for Illusion Island, the characters are a lot simpler, so it made it a lot nicer to animate them. Some of them we landed on straight away, but other ones had to go through quite a few iterations, like the walk and the run cycles. We had to, because those were animations we did quite early on as well. So we had to kind of get a feel for the character and think about how they would move. So they went through quite a few passes, and other ones went through more passes just because of like logistical reasons and like tech reasons. It's crazy. Being trusted to animate some of the most well-known characters in animation history is a crazy feeling, but it also feels really good that we were able to do it.
Believe it or not, I don't think I ever heard the word no from Disney for 3 years. I mean, unless it was in regards to me doing my impression of Mickey Mouse, then that's it. There was a lot of no's for that. But yeah, they were just super supportive and they really cared and they knew we cared. Like, they knew how much we loved these characters. So yeah, it was amazing, and it still is amazing.
Joining me now in studio, we have AJ Grant Scrunton, CEO and co-founder of Dlala, and Kelsey Wong, producer of Disney and Pixar games. Thank you so much, AJ. Kelsey, welcome.
I think that D23, the reveal, was the most nervous I've ever been in my entire career. I think that I'd put so much pressure on myself, and I loved what the team had done. And I think this was the big thing for me. You always fear that you're too close, and that, what do I do in a world where I love this thing and the team love this thing and we think it's perfect, but then we show people and people are like, oh God, like, how do you handle that? Like, how do you come back from that? You know, I was backstage because obviously I got to come out on stage afterwards for people in the room and do question and answer. The trailer came on and it got a great round of applause and the reaction on the internet was looking super positive, and it felt amazing, and I was just so happy because the team were getting their flowers, they were getting what they deserved. But honestly, I was absolutely terrified going in, and not because I doubted it, but because I didn't doubt it at all.
I was very surprised because it was almost like, you know, it had been so long since there'd been like a platformer with these characters, with any of these characters in, and I was surprised by the love that it got. But it's with anything, when you're so close to it, you don't know how people are going to react, and you just hope that, you know, this little thing that you've been working on in the shadows is, you know, out into the light, and you hope people connect with it.
Our review day was horrific because 2 reviews broke the embargo. So 2 reviews actually went out early, and by early, like hours early, and they were both awful reviews. So they might have been the 2 worst reviews we got, but they were the only reviews that existed. So I was coming back, I think I'd done something with the local education board or something I'd been helping, and I got back to the office, and it was like a big exciting day because it was, you know, I think was it launch day or embargo day or the day before? And I saw this review in the car, and I was like, oh my God. And it was a little one. It was like a German site one, the first one I saw. And then I got back and it was one of the big ones, and they were the 2 reviews. And so I had Charlotte, who was our marketing and brand manager at the time. And I pulled her out. I was like, have you seen? She goes, I've seen. I was like, is this it? Are we a 2 out of 5 game? Is it like, am I wrong? Like, have I been wrong this entire time? And so we had, like, I think it was 2 or 3 hours before the embargo lifted, and everyone else respected the embargo. And so it was horrific. And obviously I didn't want the team to know. We didn't share it. And the team probably weren't checking because no one mentioned it. And so I was like, I just don't want the team to see it. Put off the reality as long as I can. Because at that point I was convinced we'd flopped. I was convinced the game was going to tank, and that I was so wrong, and I didn't understand how. But yeah, so that was bad. And then me and Charlotte sat in the cinema room, and we had like a laptop each, and we had the PC up on the cinema screen, and then the reviews started coming in, and like the really lovely reviews started coming in, you know, like from all the press that were giving us the 8s and the 9s, and you know, suddenly it was leveling out, and suddenly it was like, okay, oh my, like, and it didn't even matter where we ended up, like, because I was so convinced going into the rest of the embargo lifting that we were 2 out of 5, like, and that was what we'd made. That yeah, like, it just, the negative reviews didn't bother me after that point, because I was like, oh, like, I've been the lowest I can possibly be today now. But it's horrible because, like, you put so much weight on it, you know, and as developers, we still do this thing where when my mates release a game, I always turn around and I go, don't read the comments. Metacritic doesn't matter. Like, Metacritic is a made-up thing with different weightings that we don't get told. Metacritic doesn't matter. The day your own game comes out, all you do is you sit on Metacritic and you just refresh, and you watch that number.
And so, DLC 1 is out. Is there any more in the pipeline?
Yeah, there is. I think obviously Craig and Chris will speak to this more detailed, but yes, we're kind of just putting together the next of the DLC drops at the moment.
So we're really happy with our first piece of DLC, the Keeper Up update. And now we're just about to release our second piece of DLC, which is a kind of narrative detective noir themed piece of content. We are reintroducing a character that players will already be familiar with from playing the main game, which is Dash Dolphin. He's an investigative journalist within Monoth, but previously in a prior life he was a world-class detective.
So Dash sees you do really well collecting these hidden Mickeys, and he gets a little bit jealous because Dash realizes that he's really missing out, and he really misses those days of being a detective. And suddenly, one day, out of the blue, Dash receives this letter, and it's an ominous letter asking him to go and meet somebody somewhere. And you go to this location, and Dash is like, I can't make head nor tail of this, fin nor tail of this, however you want to go with it. And he's like, I need your help.
Different characters across Monoth have started to receive these strange letters, and Dash is looking to get to the bottom of what's going on with the Fab Four's help.
And so you end up traversing around Monoth, finding clues, piecing things together, solving these mysteries. And I don't really want to give away too much of the story because we've got some cool stuff going on there, but it's a really nice detective-y, noir-y piece of content that we've really wanted to get together and to really make the players feel like detectives.
So the DLC started to become a reality towards the end of development on Illusion Island. We were finishing up on the game, and we knew that we wanted to do some more content beyond there, but we didn't really start officially getting going on that until probably around June sort of time, I would say. Sometime around then, which is when we started having our real big brainstorming sessions at that point, I would say.
I loved Illusion Island, and then I loved Keeper Up. And weirdly, one of my biggest worries coming out of Keeper Up was, how on earth are we going to compete with this? Like, have we just peaked with the stuff we're adding to this game? And that was a concern until we started rolling into Dash, and all of a sudden we're sitting here like, yeah, this is so cool. We've got something here that we really want to share with the players. So.
There's obviously some interesting challenges with working on DLC, because you want to make sure that it feels like it's part of the main game, whilst also somewhat feeling like its own thing. We want there to be unique new experiences for players to enjoy. I mean, we've worked in this world now for the past sort of 3 years or so, I would say, at this point, and we know this world really well. So making sure that it fit within the world of Monoth was something that didn't become too difficult for us. I think we love this world, and we were super excited to get to make new experiences for the game. And it's always interesting working within a game that already exists, because there's a certain quality bar that you need to hit there, and there's a certain expectation level, I think, from the players of what they should really be expecting from this type of game. And we just wanted to continue to build upon the stuff that we feel like Illusion Island already does really well. So, for example, with the first bit of DLC for the Keeper Up update, we really wanted to enhance that thing of the joy of movement, which we feel is ever present throughout the rest of the game. So it was really just about building on what are these already incredibly strong foundations, and just kind of how can we push that even further? How can we really make that even more apparent and appealing to the fan base?
There are some new mechanics, not new abilities for the player. Like, everything you're doing still revolves around like the core moveset, but you effectively get given items, and it's up to you as the player to figure out what in the world makes sense with matching with this item. So you're traversing through the world, you're trying to pay attention to things that may be different to before. Like, you can imagine sitting down as a group and you'd be like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Why is that there? And you can go and investigate it, compare it with the items you've got, which could lead you on to the next items, and it's a real nice experience that we're just super excited to share.
It doesn't get normal, you know, it's still nearly every day. Like, if I'm the last one here and I'm sat at my desk and I've just finished my meetings for the day, I'll still kind of be like, oof, like, how did this happen? Like, how did we go from a couple of dudes in the garage who didn't have a clue, but all they knew is they wanted to make games together, to like this?
The motto of the studio is making games we love, with people we love, for people to love.
The reason people stay at Dlala is the people. Like, it's really as simple as that for me. It's like, every time our culture has evolved, every time we've got better as a studio, it's not just because the C-suite team has made decisions, it's because the people here are fantastic.
We're all basically gamers, like we always were. That was our passion growing up. So we wanted to make the games that we love, for people we love, and that's what we do.
Exactly that. I mean, every day when you walk in, you can feel that the friendships that we've all got, it's not work place. We come in and we all chat to each other like right at the start. And yeah, we can't wait to play. If there's ever a multiplayer version, we'll all be playing different permutations with different people around the office. So yeah, we definitely still play games together, make games together. Like, yeah, it's good fun.
We're here now, nearly 12 years later, you know, about to hire like a couple of staff members probably this week that put us over 40. And I think back to the garage, and me and Craig were like, yeah, like, you know what's a good number for a game studio? 8. Let's never go over 8 people. And then, you know, I remember it became 12 and then 15. And I think we hit 20 and we were like, let's just not say a number. And the big thing for me is like, I'm always like, I don't want to be I don't want to be massive. I can't be rare size because I want to know everyone still. I want to be able to walk around and know people and be able to ask them, how is your partner doing? And know their partner's name and their kid's name and their dogs and cats' names. And I don't mean this egotistically from my perspective, because I honestly don't think I deserve the credit at all. But like, what we have done is awesome. Like, we were just these reject devs really from the games industry, or fresh out of uni for some of us, and we built a 40-person studio in Essex, in a town that no one's heard of, and we've got to work with one of the biggest companies in the entire world on one of the most famous IPs that ever existed. And I've been proud of everything we've ever done, and I am just as proud of Janksy and Overlord as I am about Battletoads and Illusion Island. But like it's Mickey Mouse. Like, man, we got to make a Mickey Mouse game. Like, how many people can say, you know, oh yeah, my job was coming up with a new world for Mickey Mouse and writing a new story and getting to sit in on the vocal sessions with the cast, the actual people with these characters. I think it's good to stay grounded, but like, yeah, I think part of me will always be in that garage. Like, and I think that's okay. I think that's okay.
My name is AJ Grant Scrutton, and I am the CEO of Dlala.
My name is Craig Thomas. Can I do that again, please? Oh, you did spot. You were doing the intro. You were doing it. Yeah. I didn't know. We're looking at Loudon.